in just last 1 year, India has quietly sold more than $50 billion worth of US Treasury, and this is without any crisis, this is without any announcement, and this is without reduction of reserves at our hand. And when we are talking about this is not some panic selling that is happening. This is a strategic recalibration to reorient away from US dollar and US dependency, especially in a fragmented world, especially in an uncertain world, and prepare for what is coming next. Because for the longest time, the whole of the globe has seen dependence on US, and that is exactly what is costing the world, especially in the Donald Trump era. Hello everyone, welcome to Vajram and Ravi's Flash News. My name is Shubhangi Singh, and in today's session, we are not only going to discuss de-dollarization, we will understand that how it is happening real time. We'll also understand that de-dollarization is coming up with gold accumulation, and we will be also looking into the patterns of changing global reserves and understanding the dimensions around it. So let us begin with understanding that what exactly is unfolding. So here we get to see that India is gradually retreating from US Treasuries, and this is being marked as de-dollarization trend. But I would like to highlight here that this is not just de-dollarization trend or attempt from India. There are multiple countries on the very same boat, including China in this context. So what we have seen in recent times, that central bank which maintain their reserves, they are reducing dependence, or they are selling out US Treasuries, and they are accumulating or buying more gold. So in this situation, it is not about panic selling, as I mentioned. It is about stability. We are reducing one component, but we are getting the stability by reallocating that to a more stable component of the foreign exchange reserve. So all in all, what are we getting to see? That the central banks are restructuring their reserves, and what they are trying to do, they are trying to reduce exposure to especially the US market, the US Treasury. And in this context, the toppers which are standing in front of us are India and China. And this is exactly what is fueling the gold rush, the high prices that you see in the market. So when we are talking about economics, the demand and supply, that's not it. The geopolitical risk, the geopolitical chaos is also driving up the gold prices. So we will be trying to understand the whole components which are present here, starting with understanding that how deep is this de-dollarization. So when we are talking about de-dollarization itself, the first thing that we need to understand that what exactly is de-dollarization. So when we are talking about de-dollarization, it is nothing but an intentional attempt by the governments, by the leaders to reduce their dependence on dollar, be it in form of trade, be it in form of investment and whatnot. And as of now, de-dollarization is being focused upon because of multiple strategic drivers which are present across the globe. Starting with the first one, that how US has become unpredictable. We don't know in which direction that US might go. It might resort to financial coercion. So the reserves which are present, they are no longer geopolitically neutral. A very good example here is, if you remember in February 2022, Russia's forex reserves were frozen by US. The sanctions were placed. So the dollars which were present there, they are not anymore usable. Furthermore, another reason we get to see that de-dollarization is being focused upon is the geopolitical fragmentation. Whenever you will look into rivalries, the other party would like to give up your resources. They wouldn't want to use your resources. For example, US-China. China wants to make sure that we are not dependent on dollar. Russia wants to do that. Iran wants to do that. So more fragmentation, the lesser interest of people to be depend on dollar itself. And add to that another economic layer where we are seeing fiscal stress in advanced economies. Rising fiscal burden, then we have rising US public debt, persistent deficits are present. That is why what the countries are looking, they are looking for autonomy. What kind of autonomy? Monetary autonomy. And they also want to be insulated from what US is doing and the consequences that are created. And for that, they need to free themselves from dollars. So this is the exact picture in terms of de-dollarization and what exactly is driving it. Now let us move to understand that what exactly as of now is the global reserves picture. So in this context, we get to see that as of now, we are in a time where gold accumulation is happening. As I mentioned, everybody wants to make stability for their foreign exchange reserve. So if they are reducing dependence on US Treasuries, they are moving towards what? They are moving towards gold. So we are seeing a surge in gold accumulation, and the central government and the central banks are the ones which are driving this demand which is being created for gold. Be it Poland, which is procuring more than 150 tons as of now, China, India, Turkey and Middle East, all of the people who would be affected by US's indecisiveness, US's uncertainty are already focused on this. And in this context, we get to see multiple developing as well as developed countries are moving towards reducing dependence on US Treasuries, including India, China, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, Hong Kong. But this pattern is not consistent everywhere, because there are countries which are increasing dependence on treasuries as well, including Japan, France, Canada, and you would see these are mostly the allies. Japan is accumulating for a very different reason, because they have negative interest rates and US Treasuries brings in a lot of profits. We can get into the detail of that later. But in this context, we see a clear pattern emerging that the reserve strategy is being shaped by the geopolitical strategy. So the allies are okay accumulating, but at the same time, the adversaries or people who need to make sure their monetary autonomy or need to bring strategic insulation, or who cannot depend on US because we are not sure what US can do, they are moving towards a different reserve strategy. And that is why we get to see sanction exposure and risk tolerance is also playing a huge role there. Now, when we have understood what exactly is unfolding, now let us move to understand the second aspect around it, that why are the US Treasuries so important. So for that, we have to understand what exactly are US Treasuries. US Treasuries are nothing but debt instruments. So what exactly is a debt instrument? Let's just say I wanted some money. I am a company, I am a firm, I needed some money for my company. So what I said, I asked you to give me 100 rupees and I will give you a bond against it, and once the time period of bond that is over, for example 1 year, I will give you back some money with interest. So 100 plus 10 rupees I will give you back. Now that bond was a debt instrument. So in this context, when we are talking about US Treasuries, they are also a debt instrument which is used by US government. If US government needs money, they give these treasuries, and in order they get money and then they pay regular interest rates. US Treasuries are of three different kinds. They have treasury bills, then there are notes and bonds. The differentiation is based on time period. Now can you tell me in the comment section that what is the difference in terms of time periods of these instruments which are present here. But the main quality that we need to be aware of US Treasuries is that they are risk-free assets, because they are backed by the US government. That is why they are sovereign risk-free assets in this context. And that is why they have the traditional advantage not just of safety, but also liquidity, and how they contribute hugely to almost every country's reserve system as well. And add to that, whenever a person is making his investment, they want stable returns. So US Treasuries are basically the one which make the core pillar of global reserves, which enable stable returns, and because of dependence on US dollars and because they are risk-free, that is why we get to see their prominence presence in the forex reserves of all countries. So if we talk about our forex reserve, we have foreign currency assets, we have gold, we have SDRs, and this is where US Treasury bills, when we are talking about foreign currency asset, comes into the picture, because it's risk free, it gives good returns, and it is definitely a good addition. Now, when we are talking about US Treasury and we have understood that, now let us move to understand that are China and India actually reducing the treasuries? So, if you look at the numbers and this given graph, yes. In recent times, if you take the reference of 2023 to 2025, from $230 billion, India has reduced it to almost 174 to 190 billion dollars, and that is a reduction of almost $50 billion in 1 year. Furthermore, if you look into the share of reserve, it has gone from 40% to only 33%. However, the gold share has increased from 9% to almost 14%, which shows that when we are reducing the dependence on treasury, we are moving to a safe haven metal, that is gold. And it is the reserve strategy that we are following, that we are not going to compromise our stability, but we are going to maintain a exposure free stance, especially from US. If you look into another country's given number, for China, they have also reduced their holdings, if you are taking last 15 years, by almost $682.6 billion, and that means they have been working on this for the longest time, and for 14 continuous months they have focused on gold accumulation. So, this is where we get to see that countries are not making noise about it, because if they will make noise, Donald Trump is going to slap sanctions, bring in tariffs and also try to capture their territory. They are rather focusing on quite gradual shift, which is absolutely calibrated and structural. So, this clearly shows what they are doing. They are portfolio structuring. The way you have your investment portfolio, you sell one thing which seems risky and buy some things that's more stable. That is exactly what India and China are doing in this context. Now, let us look at why they are doing it. What are the reasons which is driving this? This is being driven by first, currency defense. So, when RBI is selling treasuries, what they are getting? They are buying rupees after selling treasuries. First they get dollars, then they buy rupees. Now, when they buy rupees, this supports rupee if there is any depreciation that is taking place. This selling of US Treasury is also a form of risk management for India, because the global interest rates are rising. If the interest rates rise, then the bond prices fall. If the bonds are not getting stable returns, then what is the point of having them? So, we are avoiding mark to market loss, and that is why we are also moving away from treasuries. Other than that, we also get to see this is nothing but geopolitical hedging. After seeing that what happened with Russia in terms of sanctions, and we have a continuous tension with the US in terms of trade and tariff, we don't want any such thing to happen with us. So, we are just protecting ourselves. And that is why we are reducing our vulnerability and maintaining stability with buying gold. And when we are talking about China, China has all the more reason to do this, because they have had a continuous strategic rivalry which it leaves them financially exposed, which leaves them in a position where they have to focus on long-term de-risking, and they also need to focus on sanctions, insurance, because they are also on the target list for the longest time from the end of US. Now, as of now, we have a fair idea what is de-dollarization, how it is happening, why India and China are restructuring their portfolio. Now, let us move to understand that why the preference is being given to gold. As of now, we have understood why dollar is being dumped, US Treasury is being dumped, but why movement towards gold? Why not to something other? So, when we are talking about gold, it is one safe haven asset which has zero counterparty risk. That means there can be no default, there can be no freezing. Furthermore, they are absolutely sanction proof. And as they are sanction proof, they can help in times of instability, be it of any kind, financial, currency shock, or any geopolitical shock as well. And another important factor that we might miss out is how it protects in terms of inflation. That is why we get to see that gold is the permanent sovereign insurance that the countries can buy, and that is why the more uncertainty, the more chaos that you get to see in the geopolitical landscape, more of the investors, more of the countries, they will be moving towards gold. And this raised demand as compared to the supply is causing the increase in prices, the gold rally rush that lies in front of us. Now, on this note, we will be moving to another dimension which is very important here, is to understand what exactly is India's strategy in the long term. So, when we are talking about India's strategy, we are not totally exiting the dollar system, because that will be a direct challenge to US, and President Donald Trump does not receive such actions very well. We are only focusing on lowering our dependence so as to ensure that we have limited exposure. And that is why we are maintaining the liquidity of our forex reserves, stability, and also intervention capacity if any sort of depreciation takes place. And then if we are reducing dependence, obviously we will not reduce our forex reserves. We are moving that money towards gold and also especially non-dollar assets. So, we have been quietly doing this, and it seems like in the coming times it will remain quiet, it will remain gradual, and it will remain slow, so as to ensure that the resilience against sanctions is maintained, the protection in terms of bond valuation which is depleting, that is maintained, and there is whole lot of credibility in overall macro management, and most importantly flexibility if at all any crisis unfolds in front of us. Now, that was all from my end. I will be leaving you here with a practice question. You can put down your answers in the comment section. That was all from my end. Thank you so much.